y'all, and welcome back to There's Danger Here. I'm Leilani, and today I'm going to be talking about a case in the Czech Republic. And now, if you've been with us for more than one case, you'll know that I have a really hard time with names, so I'd like you all to bear with me as I try and get through this case and not destroy some of these names. Thank you. Kurim is a small town in the southern region of Moravia, approximately 9 miles away from the second largest city in the Czech Republic. But before I talk about the events that happened, let's get into a little background. Klara Moravia was born in 1978 to parents Ladislav and Eliska in the Czech Republic. She was the youngest of 3, with older sisters Katerina and Gabriela. The girls grew up in a loving and supportive home. At 18 in 1996, Klara became pregnant. After a swift marriage to Radik Kofal, her boyfriend of a year, she gave birth to their first son, Jakub, in October of 1997. This little family stayed with Klara's parents, who, by all accounts, were elated to be grandparents for their first year of marriage, before they could afford a place on their own. Then, 2 years later, the trio welcomed another baby boy in September of 1999, Andre. Klara managed to complete a degree in economics throughout this time. Gabriela states that her sister was an excellent mother. By 2003, the marriage, however, began to dissolve, leading to Radik moving out. As the divorce was on good terms, he did not contest custody of the children, but continued to play an active role in their lives. In 2004, Klara went back to school, studying social childcare and education. Then, in 2005, she unexpectedly adopted Anishka. Anishka's origin has many stories. One was that she was the daughter of a drug addict. She was born with developmental problems, and her own parents had difficulty caring for her. They often left her with a woman named Antonia, the grandmother of Klara. One day in 2000, Anishka was dropped off with Antonio and then never picked up. Antonio cared for her until her own death until 2004. That's when Klara became a caregiver and started the formal adoption paperwork. Another story was that Katerina approached Klara asking if she'd adopt a child who'd just come from Norway. After her parents died, she was put into foster care and was mistreated. From there, she was sold to a pedophile ring and was forced to participate in abuse of other children, as well as being abused. Anishka was a pale, sickly child who needed special care. After she was adopted, she was often carried up and down stairs, according to neighbors. Nobody knew Klara was adopting a child. Her friends and neighbors all reported she hadn't even mentioned it. But now, the once outgoing Klara started to refuse company. In late 2005, Anishka was taken to Dr. Andrei Zanlov. The doctor said that Anishka needed to feel completely safe with her and recommended corporal punishments for the boys. In July 2006, following the guidance of a doctor, beatings with a metal spoon or a metal belt buckle began. The boys had to kneel for hours, and both would be locked in a cupboard without provisions for hours as well. At night, they got a mat to sleep on. This continued for an upwards of 5 weeks, after which the doctor told Klara to bring the boys to a remote cottage for re-education. In August of 2006, the boys arrived, meeting Katerina at the door. She had brought with her 2 dog cages, one for each boy. They were given scraps of food to eat, but were not released from the cages until nightfall. The first night, Klara scratched her sons with a fork, held their heads underwater while Katerina held them in place. They had to recite passages given to them. Anishka blamed Andre for abuse and joined in beating Andre. The doctor kept in touch with the 2 adults, who reported that they didn't think Andre's re-education was working. He gave them something for the adults to do. First, he was handed a glass of water and told to give it to Jakub, which he did. After Jakub drank, he was told to leave the room. Then Clara told Andre he'd given his brother poison. He was taken outside and viewed freshly dug earth. There, his brother lay. They told Andre if he was good, that it would bring Jakub back to life, and after he agreed, Jakub stood up. He next ordered Clara to burn Andre, then cut off the burn and make him eat it. Clara couldn't follow through, so the doctor sent two other adults, 29-year-old Jan Turok and 23-year-old Jan Shkla, and 26-year-old Hanna Bashova. The boys were handed over to these adults and were abused even more. After they returned home, the boys were sent to live with Katerina for a time. In October 2006, Clara withdrew from her classes due to family difficulties. After the adoption was finalized, Clara moved into an apartment in Kurim in December of 2006 at 28 years old. Her children were now 12-year-old Anishka, 9-year-old Jakub, and 7-year-old Andre. She remained a recluse in the neighborhood. Furthermore, Clara stated that her parents could no longer have contact with the children and ignored Gabriella. While Radik was visiting, he too was basically barred from seeing his sons. Katerina, however, remained in contact in their lives, even moving to Kurim with the family. And this marked the start of Andre's full-time location under the stairs in their house. Though Jakub did attend school, he missed 214 hours of it during the 2006-2007 year. Neither Anishka nor Andre did. Clara reported later that Andre had a hearing problem, making learning in the classroom too difficult for him, so he was homeschooled by Clara instead. During the investigation, it was confirmed Andre had no such impairment. Before moving to Kurim, Andre was chained to a desk in the basement of the Beam Daycare Center and watched by Hannah. She beat him at times, and he was only allowed to use a bucket to go to the bathroom, unless it was night, in which he was sent to the bathroom. He was fed irregularly and sometimes taken out for activity with Jan Turek. On May 7, 2007, Edward Trudy, a first-time and brand new father, was setting up and testing a video baby monitor. However, when he turned on the screen to test it, the image came through of a small, naked boy. The boy, who was estimated to be around 7 at the time, had his hands bound and was playing with a roll of Scotch tape. The image, of course, was that of a typical baby monitor at the time. Not super clear, especially since it was receiving a signal from a house that wasn't his. Edward didn't immediately ring the police. Instead, he went to see his wife and child at the hospital. Then he returned home around 5 p.m. And again, the video remained of this boy, who was just sitting in the middle of a room he was placed. The image he could see clearly showed a bound boy, eating off the floor. Afraid he may lose the video, he began to record it. Then he called the police. Police, of course, immediately began investigating this footage. Realizing the baby monitor could transmit only short distances, they surmised it was likely coming from one of the next-door neighbors. None of the neighbors knew of a boy on the property. They finally came to the door of Clara, asking if there was a boy in the house, but she denied it. Then Anishka was the only child on the premises, but she would be upset with strangers in the house, as she was an ill child. For that, and with no proof of any misdeeds, police left. But unbeknownst to her, Edward was still recording and caught the conversation the police had with Clara, along with music playing in the background in the house at the time. Showing it to the police, they now did have cause to enter the home. Officer Gregor and 2 other police officers entered the house to search. Anishka screamed at their presence. On the ground floor One door under the staircase had a padlock on it. When asked for it to be opened, Clara stated it was locked when she moved in and the landlord had the key. So Officer Gregor brought in the fire department and they removed the lock. Around the same time, Katerina showed up. The sisters along with Anishka sat in front of the door before it could be opened. All three had to be physically removed. Anishka kicked, hit, and scratched the officers that had to move her. Finally, the door opened, and the scent of feces smacked everyone in the face, followed by the heat. Then, there he was, a small, naked boy sitting in the middle of it all. Clara admitted that it was her son Andre. Clara said nothing more. Katerina stated that Andre loved Harry Potter and playing under the stairs, but no further information was given. The boy was taken to the hospital where he remained calm during the assessment. He bore marks of torture, including long scars on his arms and back, welts in his groin, and a large circular scar on his buttocks. When night fell, he became delirious and fearful, thinking that he was seeing ghosts when he looked at the pictures on the wall. Meanwhile, Jakub returned home from school and was immediately taken to the Brno Children's Institution, the same place Anishka was sent. At first, Jakub was reluctant to say anything, but a physical exam revealed that Andre wasn't the only one who had been tortured. He had the same similar long scar marks on his body, welts in his groin. After a time, he eventually stated that the scratches were from a fork and the welts were the result of cigarette burns. Though Clara didn't smoke, she simply bought cigarettes to put them out on the boys' groin areas. After days away from their mother, the boys began to speak about what happened. Andre reported that his confinement began near the end of the previous summer, after moving to the house in Kurim. It started by him being placed in the bathroom. Then he was moved to the location under the stairs. The only time he was allowed in the living room of the house was Christmas Day. He was given a bucket for the bathroom, and there was no light, so all his meals were in complete darkness. As time went on, the boys were questioned more, and they both reported being abused by two male adults, though they didn't know their names. They did later both pick out photos of Jan Sklara and Jan Tarak. Andre and Jakub spoke about a person named, quote, Aunt Nancy, end quote, who worked at a daycare center and both boys had previously attended. Andre reported that the woman walked him to daycare and confined him in a room at the daycare center before moving to Kurim. This woman ended up being Hanna Basova, who knew Katerina from the daycare center that the two worked at. Hanna stated that Andre wasn't confined but did receive time out for misbehaving. Anishka continued to fight anyone who came near her. Social workers thought it might be better to let her become accustomed to her environment before pressing further. They did give her a pencil and paper, to which she wrote out a string of binary. 3 days later, she absconded from the facility. After searching the nearby areas with canines and the use of infrared technology yielding nothing, it was believed that she had been aided by some adult who took her away from the area. During the investigation, it came out that there was a possibility that Anishka was a lot older than she had stated, that she had a gaze that was too mature, and she had stretch marks indicating weight loss. But there was no proof that she was someone else at this time. During the investigation, DNA was taken from the areas of Anishka's room. All of them came back as a familiar match to young Josef Skarla. His daughter Barbara was a 32-year-old. None came back as the tested DNA used at the time of assessment for her adoption. At the time of Anishka's disappearance, one national tabloid offered a bounty of 100,000 Czech koruna, or €2,400 for information on her whereabouts. They circulated a photo of Clara and Anishka, and days later a former co-worker at the Children's Center stated that it was Barbara and Clara in the photo, and that Barbara was not a teenager, but a full-grown adult. A few days later, press received a 10-page handwritten letter, purportedly from Anishka herself, saying that she ran away after seeing the arrest of her mother on TV and felt she had to find and help her. Moreover, the letter stated that the reason Andre was locked in the room was because he was unruly and threatened to kill her and Clara. Handwriting analysis confirmed it to be the same as the doodles Anishka had drawn previously. 4 days after being rescued, Andre was brought to the children's institution. He and his brother did not get along at first, though both spoke kindly of Anishka. Jakub was guarded and lacked the ability to complete tasks that his cohort was able to do, such as redressing himself. Andre was chatty and trusting, often sitting on the laps of adults to speak with them. Where was the rest of the boys' family during all this? Well, their grandfather, Kofal, was allowed to visit, but he was supposed to be the only person in the family to visit per the rules of the institution. Still, he would often bring more extended family. He fought to have his grandsons brought to his home. The court not only denied them going home, but also rescinded his visitation rights for repeated violations of visiting policy. Months later, a court ruled that the institution had acted beyond its mandate by banning all family visitation. And while that returned, custody remained undecided. A plot twist occurred on June 11, 2007, when the same woman identified by DNA, Barbara Sklarova, and her father, Josef Sklara, a lawyer, Denik Horosek, a former Czech police officer, Josef Kolinsky, and a man named Vlatislav Ruzicka, showed up in Copenhagen, Denmark, 480 miles away. Barbara had been there for a month and was attempting to get a passport at the Czech embassy. There, she admitted she was hiding after pretending to be Anishka and lived with the family. She was afraid of the repercussions due to how close she was to the abuse in the house. That she had known Katerina and Clara as they were former co-workers. Barbara pretended to be Anishka because she felt like a child and took on the persona to feel more comfortable. At the embassy, she held a teddy bear and begged for things such as sweets. Barbara stated she had hidden in the woods outside the institution, then traveled out of the country via a train. She allowed for hair samples and DNA samples to be obtained, but was not held as she had no warrant for her arrest at the time. Days later, Barbara expressed her willingness to cooperate, stating that the creation of Anishka began when she worked at the daycare center, that she acted more like a child than an adult, that she sought professional help, but it did nothing for her. From there, she talked to Katerina, who offered to help her assume a new identity. They brought in Victor Sklara's daughter for the DNA test, but the rest was all Barbara. She minimized her knowledge of the abuse, reporting Andre had only been locked up 2 hours the day of the raid, being punished for threatening to kill her and Jakub. Continued investigation into Katerina and Barbara revealed that they knew each other since Masaryk University, and it is likely that Katerina was studying under Barbara's name, indicating academic fraud for which the university filed a criminal complaint against the pair. The institution of Brno, where they had worked, also wanted their pound of flesh. The institution reported that her duplicity had endangered the safety of the children there and tarnished its reputation in the public, for which another criminal complaint was filed for criminal impersonation. The Czech Republic requested extradition for questioning, but were denied. Moving next to the Interpol as their proxies to complete questioning, setting a date for July 13th. Of course, Barbara failed to appear. Her lawyer was the only one that could be contacted and reported that they could conduct an interview via Skype, but still no scheduling was done, and eventually even the lawyer was unreachable. Additionally, that doctor that supported the corporal punishment later was determined to be one of Barbara's brothers. The emails that gave the orders to abuse the boys actually originated from Katerina herself. Now, we get to the point where a cult rears its head. Because, of course, there's cult involvement. Okay, most of it's speculation, but it is interesting possible connections, and so I'm going to add it in. Barbara's father, Josef, was part of one of the factions of the Grail movement. Now, what is the Grail movement? Well, it was founded in the 1920s by a German man named Oskar Ernst Bernhardt, who claimed to be the reincarnation of Moses. He wrote a book titled The Light of Truth, laying out their beliefs. The movement has been known for having women slaves and its propensity for abuse. Oskar, his wife, and 3 children moved to Austria, setting up a settlement for the movement. It did gain a small following, but was banned during Hitler's reign, and during this time, Oskar died. Still, after World War II, Oskar's wife, Maria, revived the movement, and upon her death, named one of her children as the successor. Josef, for his part, created a sect and recruited members to it. His daughter, as well as Katerina and Clara and Hannah, were all part of the sect. During the investigation of Jakub and Andrei, a man named Artur Zatlokal, the leader of the movement in the Czech Republic, disavowed the members involved in the abuse, reported that they had broken away from the main faction 11 years prior. Raids were completed against members of Josef's sect looking for information of abuse on the boys, in which they ended up finding dozens of medical documents for children containing diagnoses such as leukemia and other forms of cancer. All of the children were from the daycare center that Katerina and Hannah had worked. They were all created by someone with some medical knowledge, but had many technical errors, lending more credence that they were all forgeries. After months of investigation, in addition to Katerina and Clara being held, Jan Turek, Jan Skla, and Hanna Bashova were all held, all for child abuse. In December of 2007, 13-year-old Adam Barner in Oslo, Norway claimed to have been abused to a teacher at school. Fearing it was by his father, he was removed from the home and sent to a children's center. From there, he vanished. He was later located in the Czech Republic with his mother. After an interview, it was determined that the boy had never gone to school in Norway. It turns out the Adam in Norway was the now 33-year-old Barbara. She put on weight, wore baggy clothes, and after finding Adam's ID, she pretended to be a boy for months. Finally, Barbara was found north of Oslo and sent back to the Czech Republic. From there, psychologists got involved. The defense declared that she was unfit, the prosecution that she was sane, and a master manipulator. The court ordered its own evaluation, leading to the determination that Barbara was sane and competent to stand trial. On April 21st, the adults were all formally indicted, and the case was to be presided over by Pavel Goth. The adults in custody were charged with abuse of the boys. Katerina, Clara, Hannah, and Jan Skla were also charged with deprivation of liberty, and Jan Turek received an additional charge of causing bodily harm. Katerina also faced perjury and false expert testimony in court in regards to the adoption of Anishka. The trial opened on June 17, 2008, and since it was open to the public, People came in masses to see this trial. Clara was the first to give her testimony, and she admitted to everything that she was accused of. She claimed that she was doing it under the advice of people that she trusted. Everyone else denied involvement. Jan Turok said that he only provided dog cages, but was unaware of their intended purpose. He also went on to say he wasn't part of the Grail movement, but was on good terms with Yosef. Barbara went ahead and said that she was abused in the home, but the court panel had evaluated her and determined that Barbara fantasized and attempted to always make herself the victim and a manipulator. Katerina took the stand and reported that she had helped Barbara become a Nishka, but there was nothing malicious, that Barbara had done nothing wrong. The jury deliberated for 3 days, and October 24, 2008, the entire group was found guilty of all charges. Jan Turek received 5 years, Jan Shkla received 7 years, and Hannah received 7 years for her part. Clara was given 9 years, and Katerina received 10 years. Barbara was given 5 years. Everyone minus Clara appealed, but they were all rejected. In 2010, the boys moved in with their grandparents full-time. By June 2011, they had full custody. It was not awarded to their father as he was unemployed and therefore couldn't adequately provide care to them, according to the courts. They have gone back to school and began rebuilding their lives. All defendants in this case have completed their minimum sentences and have since been released. In February 2012, Barbara was released and changed her name. In July 2014, Katerina was released. Clara worked on her relationship with her boys, though she has no parental rights. Eventually, she and the boys began writing, and it's reported that the boys were happy when she was released in October of 2013. And with that, the Kurim case is finished, and I hope everyone who is released is making better choices with their lives. But mostly I hope those 2 boys are building such better lives out there than they had before. To all those out there listening, be careful. It certainly is a dangerous world we live in.